Hi, my name is David Cunningham. I am a leading educator in mindset performance. And today I am so grateful to be able to share this opportunity for you to be able to find peace regardless of the circumstances in your life. Now, before we begin, I just want to personally thank you from the bottom of my heart for the time and your attention to join me in this transformational experience. You are obviously the kind of person that wants to heal and grow and become your best self, and I am grateful to know you. So, if you'd like to improve your mindset, right, this tool that I'm about to offer you today is the most effective tool in my whole toolbox for just that. And I'm going to give it to you for free today. So, get ready. I will tell you that when I learned this, my life changed. And I have taught this to so many other people. And when they learned it, their lives changed. And so here I'm going to give it to you today. So stick with me, grab a pen and a piece of paper. There's actually a handout, a link to the handout in the description. You can follow along with that, or you can just write out some notes. Or if you're in the car, just make some mental notes so that you can go back to it. Okay? I would like to start this presentation with two of my favorite quotes. The first is from my favorite Stoic philosopher, Epictetus. Circumstance does not make the man, it reveals him to himself. And then by William Shakespeare, there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. I love these two quotes because they perfectly sum up the principles behind what I'm going to be teaching today. So you may be asking yourself, why should I do this work? Well, here are some of the potential results that I've experienced in my life and I've seen in the lives of other people who have done this work and done it seriously. You may feel a reduction of stress, fear, and anxiety. Who doesn't want that? And as a result, some increased confidence as you move through the world. I've found that I have developed an unshakable peace that is not externally based. And as a result, greater control over my emotional states. As a general way of being, I'm just less reactive and more responsive to life. Now, if I could put this in a pill form, I'd be the richest man in the world, but you got to do the work. It's not a pill, you got to do the work. And so let's dig in. All of this is to create a shift moving from a victim mindset to a creator mindset. Because life is either happening to you or you are co-creating it. Say that again. Life is either happening to you or you're co-creating it. So many of the people I work with are stuck in the victim mindset. And this is not to cast judgment because I too had a victim mindset at one point. And as a result, I felt depressed, powerless, hopeless, jealous, sad, angry, and resentful. My peace of mind was determined solely by circumstances being in my favor. And therefore, I'd given my power away to circumstances. And you know what? Only part of the time were circumstances the way I wanted it. And even when I got things just the way that I wanted, I was scared to death that it was going to change. This is in stark contrast to a creator mindset, where you feel powerful, confident, resilient, excited, and even grateful no matter what is going on in the world. Because your peace of mind is determined by your mindset internally, not about the external situations. Now, this, even though it's very old, as we saw with Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, nearly 2,000 years ago, this is also deeply rooted in cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, I have spent enough money on therapy to buy myself a very nice sports car. And one of the tools that therapists use is CBT. Now, CBT is useful. It helps all kinds of people overcome depression and anxiety. One of the things I don't like about therapy is they use the tool on you but don't teach you the tool. So today I am going to teach you the tool. Remember how I told you this series is in 4 parts? In each part, we are going to tackle one of these 4 topics in order. So today's message is going to be around circumstances. The next one will be around thoughts, feelings, and then response. And you'll be able to see how they're all interconnected. So before I start, I'm going to tell you a little story about a farmer. Now, if you've heard this story, I just encourage you to listen along with me for my take on it. So once upon a time, there was a farmer who had a young son. He's about 16 or 17, and it was sustenance farming. They had a little bit of land, just enough to feed themselves and to store up for winter, to buy a few necessities. It was sustenance farming. Well, it was springtime and time to plow the crops, and the young son goes out to the barn, and the barn door is open. He looks inside, and their one horse is gone. Well, the neighbor, when he finds out, goes, "Oh my goodness, what are you going to do? You need the horse in order to be able to farm the crops, right? To run the plow, to go into town. You're going to starve to death. This is the worst thing that could possibly happen. God has surely cursed you." Well, the old man in his wisdom shrugged his shoulders and just replied, "Maybe." It is in a few days, and then they hear the whinnying of the horse outside. They go to look, and not only is the horse back, but it has brought back a beautiful black wild stallion. Can you imagine? What if you lost your car and it came back with another car? And of course, the neighbor hears about this and came running over. "Oh my gosh, the gods have blessed you mightily. How amazing. Now you have 2 horses. You can work twice as many fields. You could sell the horse. Oh, what a great blessing." And the old man in his wisdom shrugs and says, "Maybe." Well, just the next day, the young son's trying to break this horse in, and the horse throws him, and he lands funny on his thigh and breaks his femur, big bone in your thigh. And after going to the doctor, they're going to put his whole leg in a cast for a year. And of course, the neighbor says, "Oh no, this is terrible. You need your son to be able to work your crops. What are you going to do?" Well, the old man just shrugs his shoulders and says, "Well, maybe it's a curse, maybe not. Who knows?" Well, it wasn't but another day. Again, this was a busy week, and there was a bang on the door. And the old man opens the door, and it's a bunch of military men. They say, "Hey, we know you got a son in there. Bring him out. We're drafting all the young men to go fight off in the war." Well, the young man comes with his crutches. The military man has said, "Hey, what happened to you?" And he said, "Well, I broke my leg." And, "Well, how long is it going to be before you can walk again?" And the young boy says, "It's going to be, I don't know, probably a year or more." Well, the generals storm off and say, "You're of no use to us," and go on to the next house, taking all the young men from the village. Well, you may have guessed it, the neighbor came over and says, "Ah, hallelujah. If your son hadn't broken his leg, he'd have been taken off to die in some distant war as cannon fodder. God has surely shined down upon you. You're so lucky." And again, the old man in his wisdom said, "Maybe." Well, why am I telling you this story? And the other question I have for you is, was it really lucky that the barn door was left open? Or was it unlucky? Or what about the stallion coming? Was that good fortune? The young boy breaking his leg? Him not being able to fight in a distant war? The thing is we don't know. Which this brings us to this first principle of circumstances. What are circumstances? They are the unjudged, unfiltered facts of any given situation. They are the people, places, things, events of our world that definitely affect us. And occasionally, sometimes we have some influence over them, but never any lasting control. And I will tell you this, when we link our mental well-being to circumstances being a certain way, we will be stressed attempting to control the uncontrollable. It'll be a source of frustration to us. So acknowledging that there are these events in life that we cannot control is really important. But here we go. Let's take another dive deeper into this first principle of circumstances. Here is the big idea of this whole lesson. If you get nothing else, this is it. And it's a challenge, but this is why I told you that parable. All circumstances are neutral. They're neither good nor bad. They just are. Now, I know this feels like a little bit of a stretch, but stick with me, okay? Just like that horse escaping the barn, or just like the stallion coming back, or the boy breaking his leg, it just is. It's an event. This leads me to one of my heroes, Viktor Frankl. He is the author of Man's Search for Meaning. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. He spent 3 years in a Nazi concentration camp, 4 different concentration camps, actually. His father starved to death early on in the war, and his mother and brother and wife were killed in the Holocaust. He was an Austrian psychologist going into the war and after the war. And this is what he said: life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by the lack of meaning and purpose. So what he's saying there is that circumstances doesn't make life unbearable. It's the thought or story that we place upon it that makes it unbearable. And this is being said of someone that was in the most horrific instance that a human being could exist. I love this other quote from him. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of all human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. That is our power. Again, when we allow circumstances to define our reality, we are a slave to those circumstances which are outside of our control. But we have this one thing that can't be taken from us, and that is our attitude, regardless of the circumstances. So I love to think about the idea of torture versus training. Most of my life, I played the victim of my circumstances. I wanted people to feel sorry for me for how hard things were. And arguably, my life was full of difficulty and pain. But imagine this. I go to the gym. You go to the gym. You go to lift the weights, and all the weights are made out of styrofoam. None of them are heavy. No matter how much you try to lift, you can't seem to break a sweat. Wouldn't be much of a gym, would it? How strong do you think you would be at the end of that? Not very is my guess. And so torture is something that happens to you. Training is something that you choose. But like Viktor Frankl, in the midst of circumstances being like what we don't want them to be, we can use that as training to develop ourselves. That's what Viktor Frankl did. He said, I am going to use this internment camp to grow myself, to learn about what makes one man survive and the other man kill himself. What makes one man give up on life and another man to thrive and strive to continue to grow even in the midst of horrible situations. And this leads me to BUD/S Navy SEAL training. If you're not familiar with BUD/S, this is the training that all Navy SEALs must go through. It's grueling. And in this little video, you see these young guys going through horrific situations. They are sleep deprived for over a week, which is a form of torture. They're drowned. They're forced to carry these really heavy logs. They are humiliated. They are put in the pool with their legs and their hands bound. It is a psychological, mental, physical torture that by any stretch of the imagination is incredibly difficult. And these guys volunteer for it. Why do they do it? Because they want to be able to be powerful enough that no matter what happens in the world, they can handle it. And this is a test. Imagine how awesome it feels to have made it through that week of BUD/S without ringing the bell. Less than 25% of the people do. And it has got to feel amazing. So what if we had Navy SEALs training without the difficult challenge? What if it was easy? Wouldn't feel like much, would it? So you're asking me, David, why does none of this seem neutral to me? When events happen, it sure feels painful. Well, for one reason is speed. Because our brain is this unbelievable fast supercomputer, it filters out, modifies information at incredible speeds, giving meaning to events from the lens of our perception. We confuse circumstances with our perception. I'll say that again. Because of the speed of our brain, we confuse circumstances with our perception. Like a fast-moving film in a movie, the stories we tell about things get melded into the facts of the situation, making the difference difficult to detect. We cannot tell the difference between what we think about a thing and what the event is in and of itself. Number 2, dualistic thinking. As kids, often we simplify things into black and white thinking. You know, like in the Disney films, there's a good guy and a bad guy. And this can give us a false sense of comfort and control. You know, Santa, naughty and nice list. Many adults still carry around this kind of thinking. However, with maturity, most of us outgrow this simplified thinking to acknowledge the nuance and complexity of any given situation. It's not black and white. Most situations are gray. And with that, we end up shrugging our shoulders like the old man and often saying, maybe. Number 3, we have short-term thinking. In the moment, we may experience something as bad because we aren't getting what we want. However, over time, we may see that not getting what we want is crucial for our character development. You know, as a kid, you really want that candy bar, but not getting that candy bar is necessary for you to start to develop self-control, for one, but also just learning how to eat right. And so not getting what we want is actually a blessing, even though it may not feel that way initially. So here's my exercise for you. If you stuck through all the way to the end, thank you. I knew you were awesome. I want you to get a piece of paper out And I want you to write down the answers to these questions. Just take a few minutes. It's going to make this really sink in and really powerful. So, do you believe that all circumstances are truly neutral? Why or why not? I know in my life, I had an alcoholic father who abandoned me whenever I was 8 years old, and an abusive stepfather and stepbrothers. And for a long time, I felt the victim of that. And then I changed my mindset about it, and I realized that it was a form of Navy SEALs training. It has allowed me to be compassionate and empathetic in a way that I never would have been without that kind of experience. Now, would I recommend that to anybody? I don't think so. It happened to me, but I'm the one that chose to turn that into something that was neutral and I could even learn and grow from it. Second question I have is, what is a circumstance from your life that you thought was terrible but turned out to be a real blessing? I just gave you an example from my childhood. But what about that boyfriend or girlfriend you dated in high school that you thought was the one, and when they broke up with you, you were devastated, oh no? Or that person you had a crush on, or that job you wanted so bad and you didn't get. Turns out that was the best thing that ever happened to you. Good grief. So glad I didn't get that. Or maybe you got something and you thought it was going to be amazing, and then whenever you really had it for a while, you're like, this is terrible. I know I have dozens of those in my own life. And then number 3, how would your reaction to life change if you truly believe that all circumstances are neutral? How would it change? What would you have to let go of? Maybe you'd have to let go of feeling stressed about work, or stressed about her or him or what they did. You'd have to let go of some sayings like, that made me mad. Oh, that was one of my favorites. You'd have to start taking responsibility for your thinking about the thing instead of making the thing control you. You'd feel more powerful, but you also feel more responsible. Anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you've had an experience with this, I would love to hear what that's been. Again, this is part 1 of a 4-part series. Next time, we're going to talk about our thoughts. What are our thoughts about what the circumstances mean? How does that work in this system of CTFR? All right. Hey, if you've stuck with me through this, I just want to say a big thank you. You're awesome. You have so much to give in the world. Thanks for sticking through. I hope this has been beneficial to you, and I look forward to meeting you virtually or in person soon.